Alright, welcome back to Do It Myself Garage. I realized I didn't have an intro for the video, so I'm filming this after I've done majority of the work anyway. I couldn't quite get all of the recordings on the previous video. Ran out of time, wanted to have an upload on a Monday like I typically do. So what you're going to see, just going to go right into it. I thought I was going to be able to include that with the video. Well, we're going to get some work done so far on the brakes, the gas tank, and we'll start working on the steering gearbox. I don't know how far I'm going to get on this video for next week. I'm hoping to get the gearbox and all of the steering components installed, including the front sway bar. So here we go. All right, challenge accepted. Let's get this brake line up under the car, connected to the rear bulkhead, connected to the frame, connected to the distribution block up front, and then anchored down so I can say I'm done with the brakes other than adding fluid and getting them bled. Alright, I found if I put my headlamp on full power, it doesn't flash. It must be the lower power setting that causes problems. Anyway, honestly, putting the brake line on to the back was extremely uneventful. As you can see, I'm still missing the brake switch. It should go in the top center there on the distribution block. I'm going to plug that off if I can't find one soon enough. But the brake line just went right into all the clips all the way back and hooked up. It was absolutely uneventful. So nothing to really show you there. But the brakes are done. Let's get this fuel tank and fuel lines installed. Or at least make a good attempt at it. Alright, gas tank is in the car. The vent tube is hung up on the hook up under there. The wire comes up through here. It's right here. It's way too short, but I hooked it up anyway so I could just check to see if my gauge works. I got to reroute some of my wiring. Never really had it finished last year. I just got it good enough to go on the road. Let's look under the car. Just want to point out these straps. Make sure it's coming down through that other side over here. The strap has to come through. It shouldn't be flat. Otherwise you run the chance of that being loose. There's a bolt that goes through here that basically puts tension on that, pulls this part of the strap and tensions that so that can't follow the slot. And it's like that on both sides. Up under here, I just got the hose hanging. I don't know how much flex hose I'm going to need. Actually thinking about it, I'm not going to run the hard line until I have the engine and everything in up front, because I'm going to run it all as one line, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to end up there. I'm running all new lines, so I'm just going to kind of play that by ear. Alright, as usual, I get started on something and I forget to turn the camera on and I just get it done. I had never actually put the shocks in, so the shocks are in now. Pretty easy deal there. Just remember that underneath where you're putting the bolts up through, there's like a captured nut. It's a little clip that goes up inside. Otherwise, you're not going to get a wrench in there to hold the nut. So, the little captured nut goes in there, and then your bolts go into that to hold the shock up into place. I got those tightened down on both sides. Now I'm going to work on the steering gearbox. I think that's about the best angle I can get for you. So that way I'm not in the way. If you want to, my understanding, and I'm going to try it here, I'm experimenting. As I've mentioned before, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'll read a lot of stuff on the internet, a lot of stuff in the forums, and I trust, these guys are doing this stuff all the time, or hundreds of people have tried it. So, 95 Jeep Grand Cherokee, steering gearbox. The exact same pattern, the exact same pitman arm splines, and then there's a, for the rag joint, of another car. I'll try to put it in the description if I can recall. I got to go look on the forums again because I bought this stuff probably almost a year ago. Anyway, I'm going to try to get the gearbox installed, start installing some of the rest of the front suspension, sway bar and whatnot. It's a lot easier to do when the engine, transmission, radiator, and all that junk's not in here. Alright, so let's get this gearbox in there. Funny, I have the rag joint, but I took it out of the package already, so I don't have the number. But this fits onto the gearbox, and then bolts up to the steering arm. Right now, I'm just going to set it in place, run the bolts in so it doesn't fall on the floor, and then I'm going to start fitting the rest of the pieces. Because to me, that seems like the best thing. Make sure it all goes together before you finalize anything. And I really don't have a workbench. There we go. All right, so I know the longest bolt is this top one over here. It has to go through more of the frame than the other two. What am I doing here? Yeah, that's right. All right. The whole do-it-myself approach is great until you have to work with heavy stuff and they become awkward. And I should have grabbed a wrench to turn that in. Don't want to drop this. I'm not even like a half a thread in. All right, let me go grab a wrench real quick. Pretty sure I checked that these bolts fit. They only fit the frame, but I'm pretty sure I checked to make sure that they actually fit the power steering wheel. Son of a gun. Come on. You don't think they're metric, do you? Could be. Never even thought of that. Probably should have grabbed the ratchet instead of the wrench, huh? I might have to replace that bolt. It's going to be way too long. There we go. Like I say, I'm pretty sure this top bolt is way too long, but as long as it doesn't hit the frame over here, I'm good. Or if I run out of threads, maybe I'll just go on crooked. Got bound a little bit. Huh. That is so weird. That's what I'm kind of binding now too. I don't want to break the casting, that's for sure. Alright. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. Probably should have chased the threads before I started. I don't know. I'm going to take a break, look up some stuff, come back, try some other bolts maybe. Alright, so I still haven't figured out the bolt problem with the pump. I was playing around a little bit with the rag joint. Goes right in there. Be sure you take this bolt completely out on the rag joint. Then it'll slide down to where the slot is. Then you can put this back in. And that needs to get tightened up. Then I want to make sure I can get the rag joint in here properly. So I lined up the steering wheel on center. Spun this all the way to one stop. And it was 3.5 turns. So I came back 1 3/4 turns, and it lined up perfectly because you've got one size, the holes in here, one's one size bolt and one's the other. And they lined up perfectly. So I'm gonna tighten that down. I'm just gonna put the nuts on there so I don't lose everything. And then I'll come back later when I figure out the bolts for this. I figured out this bolt was bottoming out. I'm pretty sure this bolt is bottoming out also. So I'm either going to shim him up, I'm either going to shim the bolt, or I'll get new bolts. I'll probably just shim it because they come in 1/2 inch increments, and he's already through the back side. So if I shim it up, it'll still tighten plenty good. So let me go ahead and get the bolts in this thing. And I'm only going to go I'm going to purposely leave that loose because, again, I might have to take this off, but I want to at least get these bolts and nuts started so I don't lose anything. That can definitely be a problem with your projects. You get started on something and get distracted, and then you decide to clean up, and you clean up the parts you were working on right into a big bucket. You still have them, but now, by gosh, you think you can find the right ones you had? Heck no. Well, now that I have it on there, I don't have to work on it in the back. There we go. Smarter, not harder. So there wasn't really much to getting that in there. These are a different size. Just in case anybody's curious, there's a little pocket right here in the frame for that rag joint. So there's clearance there. No problem at all. I like that I have my 2 pump pieces right there. There's also a hose. On the forum, there was also a hose it said to get, so I bought that hose also for the high pressure line. I don't know what to do for the return line. I want to replace that also because that one was shot, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to that. All right, I think I'll call that for a day. See you in a minute. All right, so really reading through the forums and watching videos online, apparently this is kind of a big deal as to where people really want to have a quick ratio box. And if you don't mind that it doesn't look 100% original, then this is really an inexpensive way to do it. The box is basically identical to the original except for the bearing on the end is just a little bit different. Has a faster ratio, I believe it's 12.7 to 1, and 3 1/4 turns. And yeah, they work. I haven't finished installing it, so I can't say yeah it works for me, but from everything I've read, it works. Chevelles.com has a sticky post on this, listed a bunch of part numbers. I am going to do one thing a little bit different on mine is, so they listed an adapter to use for this. Well, I really don't want to do an adapter, and the reason that I'm thinking, and if I'm wrong, I'll have to redo it. If I put an adapter on here, now I've got this seal that could leak. I have two spots where it could leak. So I went and bought some flare fittings, and I'm going to cut this off of here, right there, flare it, and then use this as a flare fitting to fit onto the factory style power steering pump. So obviously the larger end goes into the larger port on here. That's the high pressure port is the larger one. The return port is a small red one. And then that one, I went ahead and ordered the 95 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I went ahead and ordered the 95 Jeep Grand Cherokee return line because that just hooks with a hose onto the pump. So that should work just fine. That way it'll have the correct threads for the housing. So let's get started on this. I'm going to work on redoing this flare on the end to a different style. Just kind of curious if any others out there use their freezer as a workbench. I happen to have my freezer out in the garage, so that's probably why this ends up being my workbench most of the time. Alright, so I'm going to get this off of here. I thought about sawing it. I think what I'm going to do is just going to hit it with the grinder and grind it down to this, basically till this lip falls off of here. so this is going to be a little difficult because I can't get on there good enough with this. So I'm going to straighten this out just a little bit so that this nut will go down the tube a little further so I can get my flare tool on there. Alright, I got it straightened out. I put a pin in here, a drill bit that was the size of the inside so it wouldn't distort it. Straighten it out. Now this goes down far enough. Alright, so set your piece in here, and the amount that it needs to stick out is based on this piece right here, this part of the flare. Will tell you how much you need to have in order to make a proper flare. And that should work. Grab my wrench. I got my fitting flared. I ended up going with just a single flare. I could not get it to roll over the double flare. There's supposed to be some pretty hard steel. Maybe it's stainless, I'm not sure. But I got a decent flare on there. I held it up to the piece that's on the pump, and looks like it's going to work well. If not, there is another piece you can put inside of here, a little brass, like a brass washer, brass fitting that you can do in there to take up the space. That's an option also. But this actually looks pretty good. I'm going to put this back up on the pump and see how much of this bend I need to put back into there. I got to get some of this. You see, I took out most of the bend. It was back around about here, and now that's pretty much a 90. But I'll get that taken care of, and I won't be putting that on the car for a while. I got to get the engine in first, but I wanted to get that fitting taken care of, and I think it'll work. Well, now that I'm done playing with the lines, and I think I'm in a spot I'm going to stop for now with those, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the steering linkage under here. The pump's bolted into place, and I need to tighten up the rag joint. I just remembered that. I think I'll go tighten that down and then get the rest of the steering linkage in. Well, I got it in. A couple things I want to change is I want to change that bolt around so that the nuts are on the inside. I guess probably really doesn't matter. I could just grind the bottoms of those off. Got the linkage in. Got one little spot where it's rubbing, and I kind of suspected that because the heads on these greasable Zerks, the heads on these things are a little bit larger, but it's actually not rubbing that hard, and it only does it at full, the last bit right before full turn. And I'm not sure I have my pitman arm. Take a look, show you here. I'm not sure I have my pitman arm up as high as it can go. Oh, you can't see that. Let me grab my headlight. I think my pitman arm needs to pull up in a little further. So if I can get that to pull up in, that'll raise that up enough to avoid that interference on that. So other than that, pretty good. My alignment's way off, but that's somewhat to be expected because I went with those new things from Global West, the new arms, and all of this is new. And then these arms here, these pieces, the long and the short, or I guess the drag link, because I had to go with the new drag link because I messed mine up. The drag link's a little bit different. So if anything, I could maybe replace the drag link. That might take care of some of that interference. She's coming along. She's on all four wheels. She can be steered and rolled around the garage if necessary. Obviously I gotta tighten some more things up, get the alignment a little bit closer. I have to adjust the steering wheel at some point. But we're getting there. The next two things I want to do today, I want to get the sway bar in, and then I wouldn't mind, it's a little bit of work, but I wouldn't mind getting the heater core replaced. As you can see, I broke one of the fittings completely off of it. I had cleaned it out when I replaced my radiator and flushed it out really good, but she obviously was in kind of poor condition because this time when I pulled the hoses off, the piece came right with it. All right, let's get this sway bar in here, and then we can see what else we can get done today. All right, sway bar is in. That's the original sway bar. It's a 1-inch sway bar, so she's pretty beefy. New end links, new bushings, so she's good to go. I really want to, before I call it a day, I really want to go over here and get that heater core replaced. That should be pretty straightforward. Let me get that out of there. Oh, sorry about that. I started to take the screws out, and I pushed on it and she slid right back. So there's this clip that goes in here that holds the heater core. All I did was take all the screws out around here. This is almost impossible to get these out when the fender is on. They're really hard to get to, these other screws over here. This one and this one are really a bear. But literally, this just comes out now. I should probably see if I can find a new piece of rubber for this. I think this will, yeah, this will come out this way. Anyway, I've had this out of here recently. This was actually in pretty good shape, except for the fact that the piece came off. I had flushed it out, but I have a brand new one. We're going to sneak it in there real quick. On a 68, this is really, really easy to do. This is a non-AC car, so this might be considerably more difficult on an AC car, but on a non-AC car, you take that loose, it slides back, and you're good to go. Even if that piece hadn't have broken off of there, I was probably going to replace this anyway. Got a new radiator. And I'd rather not fill it full of junk from an old heater core. The other heater core, like I said, I had flushed it out, but it had a lot of stuff in it when I flushed it the last time. Sorry, I had to take a break there for a minute. So, just fish this through here, and then I got to line these bolts back up. One of the ones I had fell out, so I'll have to put him in from the inside. And just kind of work it back up into place. I'm going to go inside and push this back out. Been trying to pull here, and I really can't get the right leverage. So I got them all lined up in the holes. Should be able to just give her a good push, and she should pop back into place. See if I can get it. You can watch for me. Felt like that went into place. On the other side, it felt like it went into place. Well, this top part did. Oh, the top went in, but not the bottom. Oh, there we go. I thought I heard it go. At least it went part way. All right. Obviously, I can't run that in there. That's got to go in with the cap, with the outer part. Okay. All right. So you can see I've got a new fan motor. I've already had this off of here one other time. There we go, now she ain't gonna fall. There we go. Heater core replaced. Just gotta put this one last bolt back in here. And looks like I got another hole in the firewall I gotta patch up. There was a lot of holes in this car, and I don't know for what reasons. I put this one in here, or I put a grommet in it. There was already a hole here. This was for my aftermarket wiring, you know, the triple gauge under the dash, typical 70s and 80s. Well, that's coming out because I went with rally gauges. So I'll be taking that out. Put these caps back on here for now. So them spiders building a home down in there. Okay, I'll get this one last bolt in there, and then I'm done. All right, well, I would say that's a pretty successful weekend. Got the steering gearbox in, kind of figured out the lines. I'll leave part numbers in the description for the gearbox, for the rag joint. Again, it's all on Chevelles.com on a sticky post there. There's also a line that you use to connect the high pressure. The low pressure one, I suggest just go getting a line, just a piece of line. I'll show you what I have. I ended up buying, I bought a vehicle specific pipe, and I really shouldn't have. What I should have just bought was a piece of straight line, put the fitting on there. You know, it has the compression fitting with the O-ring that you need. I should have just bought a straight piece, because all you need is a little piece to come up, and then it goes up the hose and into the return. So this one's not as critical. So I ended up spending like $12 for this piece that I ended up packing up anyway. So I just buy the proper fitting for that pump. Buy just a straight piece of pipe. You only need about 6 inches for the return, and then the return is just a hose. And it's not high pressure; it's low pressure, so it doesn't really matter. But you do need to have the proper O-rings and stuff to seal on this end. You got to use the Viton seals. If you use anything else, it'll eat them up. So I got the steering linkage in. I tightened that stuff up a little bit more, and I actually got more clearance for my knuckle. So I'm pretty happy there. I still haven't torqued the pitman arm on yet, and everybody was saying it'll draw up a little bit more when you torque it. It's like 140 foot-pounds or something ridiculous like that. So when I pull it up, I mean, I should get just a little bit more. Every little bit helps. And I got the sway bar on, and then as a bonus, I got the heater core replaced. I am really, really close to being able to put the engine and transmission in this car. I've got to get the engine and transmission mated. I've got to get the transmission mount, make sure I have all the pieces for that. I bought some mounts. I think I have the right ones. I'm not sure. I know I have the correct mounts for the side, but I'm not sure about the actual mount that goes under the transmission, because that one was an oddball one. Again, this is not original engine and transmission, so I'm ordering stuff for like a 69 or 70 Grand Prix for anything that I need to retrofit. Then on top of that, I've got to get, let's see what else, there was something else I was thinking about. Oh, my exhaust manifolds. I bought the aftermarket ones, but these are the crappy heads that don't have any bolt holes. So I've got to build a bracket to go on the side, and that bracket needs to kind of pinch and hold that the exhaust manifold in place. They make these brackets for other cars for when your bolt shears off, you can do it. I'm just going to have to do it because I don't have a bolt hole there, and the way the Pontiacs are, it actually runs into another bolt. I wouldn't get that many threads anyway, and it's not worth drilling into my heads for something that's probably not going to hold worth a darn anyway. I really don't want to drill into that Detroit steel and try to tap that. So I'm going to build a bracket on the side to hold it. It's just an exhaust manifold. It should work fine. I've seen a lot of the other guys. I've seen some examples of people that did it. It looked like it worked fine. So I'm going to have to try that. So that's probably going to be my next battle. I'll get the spark plugs in the engine, get that bracket on there. So again, appreciate everybody following along. Again, this is definitely not how-to. Disclaimer, absolutely. I should even put a disclaimer at the beginning. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get stuff done. This is documentation for me, for what I did, and I can go back and like, oh yeah, I did that wrong. I'm gonna have to fix that now. But at least you can maybe give you some encouragement that you can do a lot of this stuff yourself. You don't have to pay someone big dollars to do a lot of this stuff. I mean, the heater core, yeah, you kind of need to take that fender off. But I've heard of guys drilling a hole in the inner fender well to get to those bolts also. So you can drill a hole through there and then just plug it up with a grommet also. But the heater core is actually a pretty easy one to do on a 68, and mine does not have air conditioning. So literally you take all those screws out, it pushes in, pull the old one out, put the new one in, bolt it back up. It's really easy. The hardest part is getting to it. And I would suggest if you do have to take the fender and hood off, if you have to go that far, if you can't get in through the inner fender well, replace that fan motor. This new fan motor is like 10 times quieter than the one that was in there. It's got a metal cage. It blows air like crazy. You're just do it at the same time. Get it done. Anyway, thanks everybody for following along. It's kind of long-winded here at the end. Appreciate everybody for sharing, liking, subscribing, comments. You know, like it or not, this is how I'm doing it. If I've made a horrible, terrible mistake, please let me know. I'm definitely open to suggestions. It wouldn't be the first time I had to take something back apart and put it back together because I had done something wrong. So anyway, thanks again. Have a great day and see you in the next video.